Well, greetings and welcome to this, I have to say, very special episode. I'm just so jazzed up for this one. This is coming to you from my cabin on the northern hemisphere of Lake Vermilion. We're on an island out here. And I always say it's so awesome where trees outnumber people by a wide margin, which is nice if you just want solitude. And the air is fresh. It allows me to think, and the trees infinitely outnumber cars because on this island there are no cars. So I'm able to think clearly, and I'm so glad to be with Mossy Ben. And Mossy Ben is in his home turf where it's probably, I'll let him fill you in, but it's probably 100 degrees where he's sitting. But, as you guys know, Sauna Talk, we like to do these on the bench. I mean, I love sitting on the bench and having some very relaxed, free conversation, free flow conversation with others. But the next best thing is this technology that brings us really close. And so Mossy Ben is coming to you live and direct. And I've challenged him to interview me. He wanted to interview me and talk Sauna Days. So that's what we're going to do right here, right now. And welcome to this episode of Sauna Talk. This is Glenn from SaunaTimes, and I started SaunaTimes.com back in 2008. And then I built a sauna for a buddy of mine, Tom Orlando by name. I documented the whole process. It was about my fourth or fifth sauna build, and I figured, why not? And I started sharing that document with others to help them build a sauna. And before I know it, a lot of feedback from other builders. I had tuned a pretty good synopsis from start to finish. And that's the foundation for this book, Sauna Build, Start to Finish. It's now in its fourth edition. And what I love about it is it's really like a lot of collaboration with others in the space. Little tips and tricks. I try to acknowledge them as we went, like the bend square method and little things like this, and now acknowledging others and their contributions to building better saunas. So it's really user generated, and it's here for you. It's a resource. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant or a librarian or even a bit of a handyman. You can do this. A lot of ladies build their own sauna. A lot of guys build their own sauna. And I really love that. I love the empowering nature of building your own. And this resource is for you. Wow, Ben, so what's the temperature outside and where are you right now?
So, Glenn, I'm glad to be here. I'm down here in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which is right outside of Tulsa, and we are in a heat wave right now. I don't know if it's historic because this time of year is always hot in Oklahoma, but right now we're sitting at 99 degrees, which is the high for today, and we got probably another 4 or 5 days where we're reaching into the hundreds. So it's a little sweaty around here.
It's a scorcher, and it's, as they say, it's like a sauna outside, which I always chuckle when the weatherman uses that comparative. But hey, Ben, I think for listeners it would be fantastic to share how did we meet? How did you come upon the world of Sauna Times in my life?
So I've been following you for a number of years. I was very deep into the Wim Hof method, cold plunging, breath work. And, I was very aware of the things you were doing at Sauna Times because, this is very adjacent. And I was following you on Facebook, and I saw a post from you saying that you were looking for a podcast editor. And I thought, I have a 19-year-old son who's into audio, and he'd done some podcasting, and I thought, this might be a cool gig for my son, Jude. And so I reached out to you, and I told you about Jude, and I said, maybe this is going to be a good fit. And I said, we'll do a trial episode for you, see what you think. And one thing led to another. We got on a call, we hit it off, and we've really been working together since then. That was earlier this year. That was right at the beginning of the year, actually.
Absolutely. And what is your day job?
I run my own marketing services company, and we do some business consulting. It's called Mossy Brain Media, and this has really uh, been the genesis of my nickname, Mossy Ben, because my company's name is Mossy Brain Media.
Well, right on. And I know several Bens, and on my phone I have Ben this, Ben that, and I'm like, okay, it just is like Ben, Mossy Ben. That's I do that with a lot of friends I have. It's like their first name is actually how I know them, and then the second name is their real name. So Mossy Ben was born.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, and I love that, and we can get into this later, but I was so honored when you gifted me this at Sauna Days, and I wear this proudly as a real token of our friendship.
Right on, brother. For those not watching, Mossy Ben just held up a handmade hat. Spaced out on names right now, and I love her. She's a 612 Sauna Society girl who makes her own sauna hats, and I commissioned her to make a Mossy Ben sauna hat. And oddly enough, Ben and leading up to Sauna Days, Ben was talking about swag and how he wanted to have a special hat so that he could, be noticed when he'd go over and, ask people or interview people and stuff like that. So I kind of like squelched that idea, and because at the same, I had been thinking about a special hat as a gift to Ben, because that was a hell of a commitment, and it's just kind of like evidence of the cliche word of community, but this tribe. I like the SaunaTimes tribe. These are people like that are just giving, from their heart and their spirit, and Mossy Ben is one of those dudes. I mean, he came to me and with his son Jude said, "Hey, I want to come up to Sauna Days. I want to help you," and he's really filled a great hole in my lack of ability to produce podcasts. I mean, if you folks listening or watching knew how ragamuffin my production system is, I mean, it's almost embarrassing. It's a little handheld recorder, and that, those are the origin stories of Sauna Talk on the bench. But, just so grateful to you, Ben, for coming to the rescue, because as this platform grows a little bit, we all need a Mossy Ben.
Well, I'm so happy to be involved. I'm so happy to be connected with you. I love this space. I love your, tribe of sauna thermal enthusiasts, as you say, and that brings us to the topic today, which is Sauna Days. And I was so happy to get the invite from you to come up there to Minnesota. I had never been to Minnesota, and what a fantastic introduction to this great state, man. I couldn't have asked for a better time. And we'll get into the weather, but it was such a delightful experience, and I'm happy to dig into this all. So for anybody who doesn't know, you want to talk about? I would love you to explain the origins of Sauna Days, and I know you have talked about this a lot, but if you want to give kind of the 5-minute version of how this all got started.
Well, I'll try to boil it down if you listen to the ad that talks about my book, Sauna Build from Start to Finish, I mean, that's really the origin story of Sauna Days itself, and it has to do with Tom Orlando, who is when Tom and I go out, people think we're literally brothers. I mean, if you look up Soul Brother in the dictionary, there's a YouTube video of me and Tom having a beer, between sauna rounds, because I built 3 saunas for Tom. And one of them was on the shores of Lake Superior, just 5 miles south of Larsmont Cottages, which sits just south of Two Harbors, Minnesota, which is just north of Duluth, Minnesota. So this is the North Shore. This is the rugged shoreline of Lake Superior, which is, they say, the world's largest freshwater lake by water volume, which is saying something. So it's a cold plunge 365 days a year, even in summer where the surface water may get to upper 60s or whatever. You go down a foot or two, and man, you are in the ice. You are at a temperature that people pay thousands of dollars for to have in their own backyard. But so there I was on the shores of Lake Superior building the sauna for Tom. It was in the early 20-teens, 2013, 2015, something like that. And Tom's like, "Hey, G-Man, just go right up the shore about 5 miles, and there's a place called Larsmont Cottages. They have a wood-burning sauna, and nobody's ever in it. And I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you went in there and took a sauna after work." And sure enough, I did that. I parked sheepishly along the side, and I guess you could formally call it trespassing, which I had no intention to do. But in this case, it was a little bit easier on the outset to ask for forgiveness than permission, because Tom was right. It was like the sauna was lit. It was sawdust was in my ears after working all day, and I just sat on the bench and felt so wonderful with that universal feeling of good heat, and then jumping in the cold lake. And then to pay it forward, I went into the bar and had a nice meal in the restaurant, and sheepishly asked if it was okay that I used the sauna, and they were super cool about it. And subsequent saunas, I think it only took one or two more during that sauna build, where I sat on that bench with a legal libation and thought to myself, man, this is just such a beautiful resort. What a dream if we could have other sauna enthusiasts come on property here and just celebrate this place we go and this thing we do. And I approached the facility, and back then everything was so sheepish. I mean, we had to kind of go to a brewery with the tail between our legs and say, "Hey, what do you think about us bringing a mobile sauna here?" and stuff like that. I mean, we were really kind of outcast. But Larsmont, man, they just said, "Sure, why not?" And so Sauna Days was born, and that was about 7 or 8 Sauna Days ago.
It's such a beautiful property. Like the layouts, the where the saunas are parked, the lake room that overlooks all the action, the brick and mortar sauna, the entry into the lake, everything was so idyllic, and almost all it feels, when you get there, it feels designed for this event.
Ben, did you ever see that movie Caddyshack?
Yeah.
Do you remember when they have like Workers' Day, when they take over the pool?
Yes.
That's kind of the vibe. I mean, this is a Tony resort, like let's just call it what it is. It's very stately, very nice, but it's not over the top ostentatious. It's got a very Nordic vibe. It's actually the architects and the designers built it off of a village atmosphere in the Nordic regions, whether it be Norway or Sweden or Finland. So, it's a nod to the old country. But these cottages are nice. I mean, very nice. And it's expensive to stay on site. I mean, we'll call it like it is. But it affords us this takeover. So we take over the resort for a weekend, and you don't have to be, a doctor or a lawyer or a 8-figure, 6-figure income person to come to Sauna Days. To the credit of Odyssey Resorts that runs the facility, they very much recognize that sauna is by the people and for the people. So it's a reasonable price. I think it's $130, $150 for 3 days if you don't stay on site. And so I love that. It's a very kind of economically egalitarian approach to sauna, which is hard to maintain. I mean, people get dollar signs in their eyes, and everybody wants to make money, and and it sells out. There wants to be this escalation of price. But again, to credit the facility, the Odyssey Resort folks recognize that it's great to offer value for the community, and that's part of the spirit of Sauna Days.
Something I loved was meeting all of the Minnesota people. That this is their backyard, and they've been to multiple Sauna Days, and they've been involved in sauna culture right there in Minnesota. And what a great group of people, great spirit of community, and it felt like everybody was there for the right reasons. Everybody felt very supportive of each other. All of the different mobile saunas, all the sauna techs, like all these different people, the tent people, the Venic people, everybody's there because they love it, because they care about it, and because this is the event.
There's two spokes to that wheel in a way that come to mind. Like, well, first, for those listening that are not from Minnesota, it's an interesting state, and I think you can kind of define the state by its area codes. So stay with me on this one. This will be super brief. But the south part of Minnesota is 507 area code, more farmland. You got, agrarian stuff, and you got a lot of Germans and that settled down that way. And New Ulm, a good example of a town in the 507 land. And then 612ers, we're kind of known as the hipsters with the, we'll go to a brewery and stuff. We're the Minneapolis folks. And then 651 is St. Paul. That's where my wife is from. And, it's got a little bit more of like a working vibe. Like my hometown of Buffalo, New York is very St. Paul. But something magic happens as you drive north from the Twin Cities and you get into Hinckley and then north, and all of a sudden you're in the land of 218. And 218 area code stretches all the way from the Arrowhead, which is the Boundary Waters, Ely, Minnesota, which is close to where I am, all the way over to Moorhead, Minnesota, and it's the Iron Range. Highway 2 can carry you from the eastern to the western tip of the land of 218. And this is the heart of sauna country. So you have a lot of 218ers that are very proud of sauna, rightfully so. So you have that spoke of the wheel. But the other one are these, like I call them like the Finnish evangelists, like the Finnish Americans whose ancestors, third, fourth generations, late 1800, the migration, the Nordic migration to so many settled in this region up there, and many of them come to Sauna Days, and they grew up with sauna. Their grandparents have a sauna at their cabin, and they were, since before they could walk, they've been taking sauna, much like many of the Finns. And so there's a lot of respect. I always call the Finns the keepers of the flame, and we have keepers of the flame in Minnesota. And I'm just so overjoyed with that faction of folks that come to Sauna Days and bring that history with them, to the vibe of the event.
Absolutely. Well, and you felt it. I felt the welcome from all of the natives. Like they were so happy, and I felt like this property, this Larsmont Cottages, was such a showcase of a slice of Minnesota. And
Yeah.
I mean, you can speak to past events and specifically to past weather that you've had, but this year was a dream for the weather. When we had those blue skies, right, and those clear, calm waters out on the lake. It was just like a postcard, for being my first time up there, I was like, how could this be any better?
Yeah,
Because it was so perfect. What do you think about that?
Well, Ben, I wrote, there's an article I wrote about the worse the weather, the better the sauna. And there is some truth to this where, like, we have really shitty weather in Minnesota, but it is only shitty if you're trying to, sunbathe in January, I suppose. We have the most awesome climate for sauna most of the year. And I celebrate that. Like, my best saunas I remember in Minneapolis, you look at the weather, you say you wake up and, there's a storm coming. And you look at they're so accurate now on your phones. It says, okay, snow's starting at 1 p.m. or whatever, and like 8 inches expected. And sure enough, you look out my office window at 1 o'clock, and I see the snow starting to build on the deck of my backyard in Minneapolis there. And I'm like, okay. And I get giddy like a child. I'm like, this is happening. And so there's nothing better than trudging out to my backyard wood-burning sauna, with a little footprints in the snow, and fire it up, and then footprints coming back in the house. And then an hour later, I go back out to sauna, and you can barely see the footprints in the snow because it snowed so damn much. I mean, that's great sauna action. So as it relates to Sauna Days, I mean, I don't know, is this 7th or 8th annual? I always forget, and I probably should know, but we've had a couple of really wicked windy days with wind howling off the lake. And it's such an insurance policy to know that you have 12, 15 saunas, all at serving temperature, just whispering in your ear, come visit me, come visit me. And it's a great antidote for shitty weather, I'll tell you.
What did you think about for once having nice weather at Sauna Days?
Well, operationally, it sure makes the game easier. I mean, like when you have really, this is why I'm a big fan of the cool down room. I mean, down in Oklahoma, you and I talk about this. Like, do you really need a cool down room in Oklahoma? Well, I call that the third space of sauna, really, because it can be really windy, especially when it's windy. It's nice to have that temperate area where you're out of the wind and your body can kind of cool itself, to neutral at least before you go back in the hot room. So really, when you have nicer, calmer weather, especially, you can just hang outside, and we experienced that in Sauna Days 2026, where, I mean, people were sauning all day long because the time between rounds were sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours, but you're in your sauna gear all day long, and wherever you go is where you will be. And when you have nice weather that's not windy and stuff, wherever you'll be, it could be anywhere and everywhere. So it's that I think what I'm getting at here is the vibe at Sauna Days is all about like that, like spontaneity. You want a sauna, go sauna. You want to go sauna in that sauna, go in that sauna. And then you end up, losing whoever you were there with, and you're down in the lake swimming on the rocks, and then you run into someone else that you may have seen somewhere earlier in the day or at a previous year, and the next thing you know, like 2 hours go by and you forgot who you even showed up with. So that's the spirit of good weather when it comes to Sauna Days.
It was really magical, not just inside of the saunas, but like in the spaces between, where people are hanging out and they're eating and they're drinking and they're laughing and they're dancing. And it was so festive. It was so welcoming. And maybe this leads me into like kind of like the next topic is like, I was so blown away by everybody that was there from all the places that they came from. Like, there was people there from all over the world.
That blows me away. I mean, so the first one, we didn't. The net was not cast too wide. I mean, they were all Minnesotans, pretty much. 25 of us, I think, was the first year, and then as this kind of expanded itself out, I'd be shocked to sit on a bench and look around and where are you from? Tennessee, Illinois, Texas, Florida. It's almost like the people traveling from outstate, maybe it's 50-50. I'm just kind of guessing, but it sure is a lot of people. And what else is kind of cool about it is people don't come in packs. Like, you got people coming from all these different states on their own or with their significant other. But there's a real kind of like common spirit to it. As soon as you step on the grounds, you're with kindred spirits, and then it's like you came with everybody because they're all your kind of people, our kind of people.
Absolutely, I felt so connected with everybody. Sitting on the bench with people from all over Europe. I met a guy who was originally from Japan. He was living in Texas, but he was from Japan, and it was so cool because the commonality was the place. Do you know what I mean? Like, we start talking about the heat and the experience with sauna, and it just opens up and blossomed. And we're talking about life and existence and the state of the world and just really going deep so quick. I mean, it was so magical. And again, this is the nature of sauna. This is the transformational nature of this space.
I'm always drawn to that line that people like us do things like this. And people like us, sure, we love the sauna and the cold, but there's this term I really like, and it's adjacencies. Like when you've been at this as long as I have, like Julie and I have this unspoken word of at the dinner table, I try not to use the S word because it is so encompassing with what I do and that. But what gives me great excitement are the adjacencies. What's adjacent to this thing we do in this place we go. And I think you kind of touched on that, Ben, where like you can get on the bench and you end up start talking about wood-fired pizza with somebody, or Oslo with someone else, or hiking, in the Pyrenees, or God knows what. But when you have that common interest that we do, it makes the adjacencies that much more fun and exciting.
I'm going to play a little clip I've got of a guy I met who came from Columbus, and he had such energy. I was sitting with him on the bench, and he was talking to me about past Sauna Days promotion and how he had watched the promotional video every single day leading up to Sauna Days. And he was so happy to be there. And I said, I was doing some video at the event, and I said, listen, man, you are such a fan. You're so happy to be here. I said, I'm going to film you, and you're going to tell me all about, your experience, and that you're going to be a part of this now because of your energy. So let me play this, and then you can kind of tell me what you think about, the spirit of these guys that have come from all over.
Tell me all about your journey to Sauna Days.
Oh man, this has been the craziest year ever. A buddy of mine came last year and didn't tell me about it, and then I cursed his name for a year. And I've been watching that promo video for a year straight, so I'm walking around thinking I'm running into celebrities because I'm like, Sauna Days, this is the best thing. I talk about this all the time. All my friends in Columbus are sick of it, and I'm so happy to be here. They're happy I'm here. I'm getting it out of my system, and so now I can bug them with this promo video for another year. Well, I can't wait.
So let's keep this going for a second.
Yeah.
So you're here, you're drinking it all in. What's so great about this?
Oh, you're with a bunch of other weirdos that love sauna as much as you do. And I do. It's to be on the same wavelength as all of these people, to be right next to the lake, to be able to jump in the coldest water that you've ever felt, to sit in the hottest rooms that you've ever been in, is one of the most existential experiences that you'll ever have. And I'm so excited that I get to spend it with all of these wonderful people, and I can't wait for you to come because it's going to be an absolute blast.
This guy had so much energy, and he was so happy to be there. And even if he was like demonstrative, I felt like everybody else I talked to was brimming with the same kind of energy and the same kind of enthusiasm and gratitude.
There's a couple terms that come to mind. One is sauna glow. That's the name of Michael's place out in Portland, Oregon, but it is a thing. He's exuding sauna glow, that guy. And the endorphin, this endorphin rush that you get. Okay, so I could get on this riff about how we live a very, we become soft as humans, and this whole thing, where when we go into the cold and we go into the heat, we're really kind of attacking our primal instincts and getting back to the core of humanity and all this great stuff. And that's real, right? Like, so he's found that, right? Like he's come out of the lake and he's digging himself out there outside in nature. And I think that there's like a tapping of the primal spirit that's so, it's very euphoric, like to be doing that, that nature, sauna in nature, bigger than all of us, kind of a spirit. But he's got it, where it's contagious, right? Like it becomes like really contagious within the group there at Sauna Days, where it's like we're all on natural, legal libations, put it that way.
Oh yeah, well, and I love where he says, "I'm here with a bunch of other weirdos like me." I love that, because it's true. Like when we start talking about this to people outside of it, they don't understand, right? And they just think we're obsessed with it. And how can you understand something like this, whether it's sauna as a practice or an event like this that's built around sauna and sauna culture? You can't really explain it. It needs to be experienced, And he was so happy to be there, like everything was leading up to this, and what a payoff! This guy, what a guy.
Well, that brings me great joy. People that make a commitment to come a long way, that comes with the responsibility, and it's sort of like behind the curtain with Sauna Days. the best metaphor, or a metaphor that we can use, it's kind of like looking at a duck in the water, and it looks so effortless. But if you really look at those feet, they're moving like crazy to get the duck moving in the water. And in a way, that's like any event. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of organizational stuff. And I mean, I'm just so grateful that the facility, the folks at Larsmont Cottages, they do a lot of weddings there. You know, Sauna Days is by far the largest event that they host at Larsmont Cottages, but they know how to do all of the paddling, you know, under the surface of the water and certainly behind the scenes. So I've been able to just kind of ride that. You know, I ride right with them and let them focus on what they're good at. And I'm just so grateful that they have the same values that I have. And I could get into some of those values because it's not assumed. You know, and do you want to know a couple? Well, so it's sort of like this balance of kumbaya and capitalism, and it's something I've grappled with. I mean, I was a corporate soldier my whole career. I worked for Nestle. I had a lot of responsibility. I was at a big job. You know, I didn't have a lot of, I didn't have direct reports, but I had a lot of big accounts, and it took a lot of work to do my day job kind of a thing. So I never wanted sauna to become like that. And so I have this kind of like resistance to I'm much more into the kumbaya than into the, like the commerce. But commerce makes the world go round. So trying to keep Sauna Days real without it turning into a boat show or a car show where people are hawking their wares, that has been a challenge. But the sauna universe has really provided, because the sauna vendors that come get it, like that. This is their career. Like, they are builders or operators that have invested their, they hang their shingle out there saying, I'm a sauna company. And so for them to come and take that hat off, that selling hat or that business hat, and put on the hat of kumbaya, it's a very delicate ask. But I have to say that's one of the biggest things that I've been so happy with Sauna Days, is I have had to minimally police this. So a quick story on that one, the kumbaya versus commerce. I went to the West Coast Sauna Summit. I've been to the first two, and Valtteri and Linda put that event on, and it's all kumbaya. I'm like, what's in the water out here in British Columbia? I mean, you got Andrew from Sauna Builder and Thermalux Josh sharing war stories together, and they're both sauna builders in the same territory. And I'm like, I felt so bad as a steward of this upper Midwest Minnesota sauna scene that, this it doesn't exist, or it's not as kumbaya. But man, this past Sauna Days 2026, I'm just so grateful to the folks that come and bring their saunas and take the commerce hat off, or at least put it down for a little bit and just celebrate the kumbaya. So that is, I think, paramount for Sauna Days. Like, you won't get hustled at Sauna Days.
Well, I felt like there was a real spirit of hospitality from all of the sauna vendors. They were very proud of all of their builds, but it wasn't in a competitive sense. It was all in a welcoming, hospitality sense of they were there, they were working their units, their saunas, and just wanted to provide the best experience that they could, and it was so cool to get on the bench with these sauna owners and go from sauna to sauna, and everybody had something good to say about each sauna. Nobody was tearing each other down. Nobody was nitpicking. It was just like what you say, when you feel good heat, it's all over. It was all over this whole campus, this whole property. It was all such good vibes.
I'd like to lay claim to creating that, but my focus has been in that lake room, because getting the speakers there is a privilege and a responsibility. And I did work hard on creating the vibe for the sauna vendors, but creating oil to the engine of the mechanics of how the vendors are going to get along and stuff. A large sense of that happened organically and naturally, and a credit to those guys, because it's again the duck swimming in the water, right? Like, you got a speaker coming in and his plane is late and he's never been to Minnesota, and how do you do this, how do you do that, and one guy needs a flash card for his laptop, and another, I mean, there's so much minutia to put a bunch of speakers together for a weekend. I chose that as a primary thing in hope that the sauna vendor aspect would kind of settle itself down. And so I can only be in one place at one time. And so I do a lot of back end stuff to help curate the sauna vendor stuff. But when it comes to showtime, I mean, my primary focus has been in the lakeside room where the presentations happen.
Let me just touch on that for a second. For anybody who has not been to Sauna Days, yes, it's a sauna festival, where you get to experience and all the different saunas and see the builds and get in the lake and all that stuff. But also you have this lake room where you're having all these panel discussions and seminars and workshops all about conversations about sauna culture, sauna science, sauna practice, all of these different layers, explaining and articulating and discussing everything to do with sauna in this moment. And you had this wonderful curated list of who's who from all over the place flying in for this event to not only experience it, but to share stuff that they're working on, stuff that they're researching, they're talking about the books that they've written and the amazing stuff that they're doing in this space. And a lot of that stuff ends up being Sauna Talk episodes. But for anybody who's there, it's like the Disney World of sauna, like you get to learn all about this and interact with these great minds, and then you get to go get on the bench with them. It's so amazing. It's such a layered experience.
Bingo. Sauna, it kind of reminds me of Coachella. Like, some go to Coachella and never leave the Sahara tent, Others go to see Lady Gaga, and then another crew goes to see Blur, what I mean? It's like, and that's the beauty of music, right? Like, all in one gathering, you can have such an eclectic setup of, house and Brit and pop and reggae and I think sauna can take on that full richness as well. And I used the term before about adjacencies, and I just love that. I mean, when you have people coming together from different angles to this, like a cold plunge enthusiast, meeting someone who's into like Nordic traditions, and then they start grooving. And one of my, little joys there is I'll be curating a presentation or in the lake room, and I'll look over my shoulder and I'll see people sauning, walking from the upper village to the lower village. And I'm like, this is it, man. This is so great. They don't need, and the lake room is not huge. And so it all works itself out. Like, the people that want to sit in on a presentation, go find a seat, and you're welcome in the lake room. If you want to go take a nap, go take a nap. If you want to go for a hike and go to a waterfall, if you want to go in the lower village and sauna your ass off, have at it. Like, there are no rules and restrictions that I prescribe at Sauna Days. The Larsmont staff may have a couple of their own, but it's self-prescribed.
Well, and I have to say, I felt that you led that vibe and that aesthetic so well. And I think, lots of people are there and they're looking at you as this voice and this curator and the host of this event. And they're looking at you to kind of like, get the tone really defined. And I thought that coming and witnessing you in this environment, it was like the most natural thing that I've ever seen. And you were calm, you were relaxed, and I know, I was on the backside of this. I was helping you behind the scenes. I know there's a million things going on and a million things to think about, but man, you really set that tone of uh, chill, relaxation, and friendliness, and again, hospitality. Just there in drinking it in yourself, but also making sure everybody else is having a good time. And there was no rush. There was no, nobody's ringing a
Yeah.
bell saying you have to be here at a certain time. It was so free flowing, and I remember how you guys made an audible. You called an audible, and you took Jesse Coomer's breathwork panel outside on the fly. You're just like, it's a great, beautiful day. Let's go do this panel outside. And everybody just kind of collected on the grass.
Yeah, so Jesse, if he doesn't come in 2027, I'm going to be so bummed. But he's already committed. He's coming, and he is Mr. Sauna Days too. Like he's been to, I don't know. Jesse's been a speaker, presenter, enthusiast for the last 3 or 4 sauna days. But that moment was there. We were he and I were both enjoying the other panel discussions in the lake room, and again, I was looking outside and seeing some of my friends taking sauna, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. What do you think, Jesse? And he goes, I don't think anyone's going to show up. It's kind of the end of the day. Let's go outside anyway. And I know, it was the beer tasting. And boy, a nice cold beer was certainly sounding pretty good to Jesse and I. So we went out, and it was like 4 o'clock, I guess, when he was supposed to speak, and we're out having a beer. And and someone comes up and says, he sees me and Jesse out having a beer, and he says, they're all waiting for you in the room there. It was like a full house in the lake room. And I said to the guy, I think Jesse ran in and grabbed everybody, and it was more than I expected, and he expected. And God loved Jesse, though. Just such a great dude. We just, like you're saying, we just riffed on it right on the grass. And I went over and got a cold beer for Jesse as he did his breathwork presentation, and knocked it out of the park. It just yeah, a highlight. 2026 had dozens of highlights. I'll tell you one more. So you talk about this like free flow business going on. So Valtteri, I mentioned him earlier, the co-founder of the West Coast Summit, came, and Val's one of my faves. I love the guy. He and I see sauna the same way. He's a Finn. He's very open book about sauna and loving the sharing of this thing, while also being a keeper of the flame of its traditions and wonderfulness. And so we were cruising around. He was shadowing me. He wanted to see how this thing rolls. Like, how does Glenn do this? As a guy, as a fellow, sauna village, curator. And we're coming out of the lake, and we're just standing around. And then I was like, well, let's do a round in the brick and mortar. And so he and I both step into that sauna, and inside that sauna, so there's argument of whether that brick and mortar sauna at Larsmont Cottages should have a window looking out over Lake Superior. It is $1 million view, and there's no question about it. But that sauna exudes spiritual patina, unlike others, and a lot of it has to do with its history, as well as the fact that there's no window on it, because you enter that sauna and you are immediately transformed. So it was very dark, and Val and I step in, and we go on sit on the sauna bench, and who are we presented with is Kev O'Connell, founder of the International Disciples of Sauna Tents, giving out a kick-ass Venic treatment, like with these two whisks. I think he had an oak and a birch, or maybe they were 2 oak whisks, but he was doing an improv whisking session on the bench. And I'm telling you, that microclimate at that moment was as good as any sauna I've ever been in. And I've been in hundreds and hundreds of saunas, whether they be in Norway or the great country of Finland, it's all that multi-directional radiant heat from everywhere the benches, the walls, and this well-seasoned heat in that room. And the way he threw steam is just what I would have ordered at that moment. And there he was delivering to like 6 or 8 of us, and we be already there. We're a group of 10, and I just had a great round with curated by Kev, total free flow on the bench at the brick and mortar sauna.
I love that. And well, I of course I brought my son with me up to Sauna Days, and we had some great rounds in that brick and mortar. He and I, just us, late at night, and just some great conversation, just some memories that I'm going to just hold on to for the rest of my life, because that brick and mortar is a magical sauna. It just perfect in every way. I mean, I get it what you're saying about the window, but without that window, the draw is the connection with the other people who are sitting next to you.
I always say, every sauna has its own soul. I think that was a line I'd like to credit that off to Jarmo Lehtinen in 2013, maybe at the Perfect Sweat Summit with Mikael Allen. He either laid that on me back then, or maybe it was 2019 when he and I were traveling around Finland. And good sauna, sauna is like that. Like there is a soul there. And those benches on that sauna are original. And there's talk that maybe we should redo those benches and stuff. But that is a soulful sauna, man. That is a place of great memory. I mean, that's where Sauna Days was born, on that bench right there. And to share that with others is, special, dude.
So let me ask you, what do you think has been the biggest change when you think about the first Sauna Days and you think about 2026? What would you say is the biggest difference that has changed over time? Maybe for the good or maybe for not so good. I mean, what do you think about where Sauna Days started and where it has ended up at this point?
Well, the first and obvious answer is the number of bodies. I mean, the first Sauna Days, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, maybe it's been, I don't know, is it 7th or 8th annual? But the first one was 25 of us. And the litmus test was, look, it's a success if everybody leaves on Sunday with a smile on their face. And everyone did. It was so awesome to have that, and I think we had 2 saunas join us, like 2 mobile saunas and in the brick and mortar. And it was awesome, So multiply that by 10. I mean, I think we had over 250 this year. We'll have 300 in 2027. It's capped. It will sell out and stuff. So, yeah, dude, that's the easy answer, man. It's a number of bodies. But you know what? The bench to body ratio is, again, the duck swimming with the feet swimming. That's something that is really important for me. If people are coming from Tennessee or Oklahoma or that guy from Ohio, and if it's windy and rainy and he's got to stand waiting for a bench spot outside of a sauna for any amount, an inordinate amount of time, I mean, that's not going to happen at Sauna Days. I mean, this is by the people and for the people. So we have created more bench space to accommodate more people without sacrificing the goodness. And I'm committed to that, man. That's like a real foundational value.
Well, and as someone who's there for the first time, I never saw anybody, unless they wanted to go into a specific sauna, I never saw anybody waiting around. There was so much space for everybody. If you wanted to be on the bench, you could be on the bench. And that's not easy. That's not easy when you're getting into the hundreds of people to have that kind of capacity. And it felt seamless. Like this is the magic trick, is that people don't see all the infrastructure and all the planning and everything that goes into it. They just come, and either it's a great experience or they got gripes. But I didn't hear anybody complaining. It's definitely not about sauna capacity.
In 2025, I remember standing almost peak Saturday time with Troy, the GM, the general manager of Larsmont Cottages, and Troy and I were doing a behind-the-curtain assessment of things, and he looks around, and it looked like not much was happening. You had like 10 or so people on the rocks, You had a few people standing around looking at the guy doing the smelting of iron. We have these artisans come and do their crafts and stuff. And then, a few people standing outside in the lower village, and he goes, I think we can hold a lot more people here. And I said, Troy, I said, it may look like not much is going on right now, but let's go look into these, let's go over here. And so we go over to the cluster of saunas, and you look in the window, packed. You go to the next sauna, look in the window, packed. It's like, so the place can look kind of mellow, but what you don't understand is that there's literally 125 people on the sauna, on any one of number of sauna benches. You only see them when they leave and go jump in the lake. And then, so there's a lot of people hidden at Sauna Days.
Maybe the difference this year in 26 was the weather, because everybody was all over. Everybody's everywhere. They were on the grass. They were on the patio. They were in between the saunas. They were down at the lake. There was people everywhere. Everybody had a smile on their face. And like I said, if you wanted to get on the bench, there was really no lines. You could get in anywhere you wanted to. And again, hats off to you. Hats off to the Larsmont guys, their whole team. Hats off to all of the sauna vendors, because you guys made it look so easy. I feel bad. I really do feel bad for guys like Val or anybody who's coming to this event wanting to emulate this, because you guys made it look so easy, and it's not. It's a real magic trick that you guys are pulling off. And what a great time.
Well, yeah, after you've done it for a bunch of years, you sort of get out the playbook, at least operationally. And I just feel so honored in a way to get out, the calendar and start curating the speakers is one of my joys and privileges, of the event. But yeah, man, it's good. And I hope we can keep it this. I don't see it changing. The real origin story is held to this day, where, you have great heat and this beautiful lake and this beautiful place. You create that foundation, and everything else really does fall into place, as long as you kind of got your act together. And Larsmont does, from the curation of the food. And I do want to say this, for those thinking about coming to Sauna Days, you don't have to stay on property. There's a huge value in booking, and it does sell out every year. It may be sold out now. I don't know. But if you stay on site, man, it's so nice to be able to go take a nap, or go to your room and recharge. But it's not critical. We still want this to be by the people, for the people, and it's a great value. And there's great places to stay. Some walking distance, some biking distance, some stay in Two Harbors. It's kind of nice if you don't want to be sauna all the time to stay off site and come on property for when you want to hear the speakers and get on the bench. But we really wanted to create that dual thing, like on site, off site. And either way, the facilities for you, to come and dig yourself.
Right. And I mean, it's got such great amenities, Larsmont. You got the restaurant there, you got the pool and the hot tub, just wonderful grounds, fire pits all along the shoreline. It's just, it's so conducive. It's so ideal for an event like this. And hats off to you for having the vision of seeing this property and imagining what could be. Because you really brought this thing to life out of nothing, and it's really impressive.
Oh, thanks, Ben. That's really kind. I pinched myself at every Sauna Days. I pinched myself multiple times at multiple moments. It's a dream. It's really been great to be able to keep this thing real and keep it alive all these years, and keep the train moving, right? I talk about adjacencies, we're going to be doing some interesting things in 2027. And the fact that it flows and everybody digs themselves and it's got a well-tuned vibe, it gives me the freedom, to work along the edges a little bit and to help keep this thing alive and fun for others. Because it's not just sauna, right? There's other adjacencies that we enjoy during Sauna Days.
It was an excellent experience. I'm so glad I got to be there. Glad I got to be there with my son, with your whole crew, all of those. Is it 612?
Yep.
All those who came up from Minnesota and hearing all about the hometown scene.
Yeah.
It was just a core memory, man. Just thanks for the invite because it couldn't have been a better time.
I love it. I love it. And you know, it's contagious. I don't know, maybe half of the people that come to Sauna Days have been to other, have been to previous Sauna Days. I'm reminded of the crew. I love this. There's a crew of 4 to 5, and they had their own bathrobes this year, and I had a medallion on there, like 6th annual, or maybe it was 5th annual. But they've been to 6 in a row, and they tell me it is their favorite weekend of the year. And as soon as they leave on Sunday, they go book their cottage for next year. Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe we'll have some way to kind of mark how many Sauna Days people have been to, but I'm honored to say I think I'm the only one that's been to every one. 7 in a row. So yeah, I'll keep that string going, man.
Well, listen, for anybody who's listening, anybody who's watching, if you haven't been to Sauna Days, you need to be at Sauna Days. And Glenn, I understand like this. There's only so much of a capacity, and honestly, you do talk about it. We hear the talks on Sauna Talk, but honestly, I don't know how much active promotion there is for Sauna Days. It's kind of like it's almost like autonomous. It's like the people who are going to go. It doesn't need a lot of marketing. It doesn't need a lot of promotion because it's been around for so long. It's got a really, really fired up fan base, as you could tell by that video of that guy from Columbus. But what I want to say is, if you are a thermal enthusiast, if you love sauna, you should really consider coming to Sauna Days. You should go and register for 27 because it's a great time. This is your tribe of people, and man, I just can't recommend it highly enough.
Well, you're on the team, Ben. Mossy Ben at the controls, and you will see Mossy Ben in 2027. Is Jude coming next year?
I hope so. He had a
Cool.
great time,
Good.
and it's
Yeah.
always great. He's 19. It's always great to see teenagers and young adults care about something. That's is amazing to see. And he was right in. He was there. He recorded all of the panels. He was getting on the bench. He was talking to people. And as a dad, it was just wonderful to see him kind of light up in this new environment. He'd never been there before. He didn't know anybody, and he just jumped right in. And that's the kind of environment it is. It's very friendly,
Yeah.
very welcoming,
Very welcoming.
very like you say, kumbaya. And we had the best time. It was so good.
Fantastic. So great. I do have to shout out like a couple of names here, and I hope they listen to this episode. Craig is the marketing director of Odyssey Resorts, and Craig's the guy who I initially contacted. He's been with Odyssey that long that when I called to find somebody who could say yes to Sauna Days, Craig answered the phone, and he ambassadored this event up the flagpole, and he gets it. He got my book, and he built his own backyard sauna. I mean, he's a convert, and he was into sauna before Sauna Days. I did not have to hard sell the concept to Craig and the marketing folks there at Larsmont, and Troy, the GM. Now, the less I deal with Troy, I think the better, because earlier Sauna Days I was with Troy quite a bit, and again, all of the nuances. But the cool thing is, in 2026, I didn't have to, but I let Troy be Troy, and he's the GM, and he is as smooth as they go, and he's just so understanding of the dynamics of what it takes to put on Sauna Days. And a third now there's others too, the staff, and I could start naming names at the facility, but Gage, this is Gage's first year kind of being the lead for Sauna Days. I think his title is like the assistant GM or assistant manager on the facility and stuff. But you talk about a guy that gets it. He's been with Odyssey Resorts for some time, but his new role is at Larsmont Cottages, and he was the tip of the spear guy for 2026, taking over for Grant, who had done this for several years before, and taking nothing away from Grant. But Gage hit the ball, out of the park in terms of all of those little nuances to get an event off the ground. So, I call those three guys the three amigos, and they are really well tuned. So once you get that flywheel going, everything else just sort of like is tuning. And I used Coachella as this example, right? Like those guys are so tuned at creating an amazing event, but it started with the first one, and then just being very conscious to how things flow and work. So dude, that's the story. That's like the secret behind Sauna Days is Larsmont Cottages, the staff, 218, the spirit of understanding sauna, community outreach. I mean, it's a great statement for Minnesota, in northern Minnesota specifically. Very proud of our sauna culture, and they wave that flag very proudly and tall.
Well, it's all justified, man. Like, I can't say how impressed I was with their whole team, with the property, with the event, with the people. Everything was fantastic. So, again, I want to thank you for inviting me to Sauna Days. And thanks for inviting me on Sauna Talk, man. This has just been such a great time to have this discussion and reminisce about our great time there, in Two Harbors, man. What a memory.
Yeah, man. Yeah, when you're in the sauna forest, it's hard to see the trees. So when you come from the outside and come in, it gives me really a nice warm perspective of what we're doing. And so I appreciate you, brother. And dude, guess where I'm going right as we hang up? You want to guess?
I would assume getting in the sauna.
Absolutely. I'm going on the sauna bench, so I'm just super excited to say goodbye, and I really enjoy our time.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for this call, and just thanks for everything that you're doing, brother.
Great. We'll see you soon, man. Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sauna Talk podcast. For even more content and discussion of all things sauna, visit SaunaTimes.com. That's where you'll find articles, resources, and the stories that keep the sauna culture moving forward. You can also connect with me, Glenn Auerbach, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Substack. And if you're interested in live events, workshops, or local and regional sauna circuits, you'll find those details on the website as well. Finally, if you represent a brand aligned with authentic sauna culture and would like to explore partnership or sponsorship opportunities, I'd love to connect. Reach out through SaunaTimes.com and let's start the conversation. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, I'll see you on the bench.